Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my AM reading video for Friday, March 20th, 2026. Going up on a Saturday, once again being filmed on a Saturday, which is the part I'm really trying to get away from, which happened last week. Now it's happening this week. I am behind on my reading, more behind than I'd like to be, and I've been reading relatively normally, but I have to privilege the BookTube prize, and I can't talk about that too much in here, but I'll get to that part later. Otherwise, I have, in the last couple of days, finally crammed in a few things I can talk about a little bit more, but I'm expecting to make this video short and sweet. Once again, I'm in the light in the wrong time with the light right over my face, and after this, I hope to get up and moving with my day. Day's moving on without me, so without further ado, as usual, the first thing I'm going to do is talk about a short story I'm reading in a literary journal. That's how I start these AM reading videos. And I'm currently reading from Ploughshares. This is the Spring 2025 edition. And I just read Italian Blue by David Ryan. And this story is about a realtor who is trying to sell a colonial house in her childhood neighborhood. And we see her, and she's never named, and she meets with three potential clients. And with the first client especially, maybe you could tell that just it's honestly a bad fit. Like, there's conditions with the house that it's an older colonial and it comes as is. And also they're late to the showing and don't really seem to take responsibility for that. And certainly don't want to take responsibility, I think, for fixing up the house themselves. So you can kind of see why they don't fit. And then, but with the next two sets of clients, it becomes, closer and closer. And finally, the last clients, this couple with a kid, absolutely want the house. But by this time, we've also been going back into the past and sort of with a little bit of, I think, I don't know, it's kind of really rich, thick writing. Very interior. This is a very interior story. We get to learn more about this narrator and, her resistance to even selling the house. And it goes back to her childhood and how the couple who used to own the house, seemed to be this anchor in her life. It seems like, maybe she had a bad home life and kind of went to them for refuge. And in fact, at one point, the woman who previously owned the house said, "You're always welcome here." So I think in a fantastical way, she would want to own the house that she's actually trying to sell, and in fact had been sleeping nights over in the house. When she walks away from the clients who, despite all of the fixer-upper stuff, and there's a significant amount they're interested in it, you can tell something's kind of wrong. So it's an interesting story, although I feel like, the thick exposition and interiority, I don't know, it takes a little more work to kind of grasp it. But I think it is a story about this unnamed realtor who otherwise, it seems like we also learn, she went through a divorce and she doesn't know anyone else in this neighborhood anymore. So maybe, she's untethered herself and she's using this house that she's ostensibly trying to sell, but she wants it to tether herself. So what can you do? The first and only book I finished this week is Welcome Home, KLINE by Courtney Preiss, or at least the only one I could talk about. This one I read for the 2026 Buzzwordathon covers prompt. And this is a contemporary story. I don't know if it's pure romance. There might be too many other subplots going on, even though, the ending is a romance ending. But we're following KLINE, who's this 29-year-old whose life was recently upended. She's living in, New York City and is serious with her boyfriend, Ben, and he gets a job in LA or California somewhere. So she goes through all the motions of quitting her job and hiring her replacement and selling her apartment, and that is when Ben dumps her. And so she is very much at loose ends and like living on her friend's couch and starting to kind of hook up and so forth to, get over things. And that's when her stepmother calls saying that her father just had a bad fall in their home in New Jersey, and they want her to come home to live with them for a while. And it's even more than that. Her father, Leo, he's an intense person. He has this intense interest in a local men's softball, baseball league, wants her to replace him now that he can't play. And he's obviously using this in part to sort of deny his new medical problems. But anyway, you know, she also is at loose ends and nothing's going on. So she does decide to go home and join an all-male baseball team, which has its downsides, you know, in terms of, you know, the inherent sexism of the endeavor, although she gives worse than she gets, I guess. You know, she gets increasing amounts of, you know, harassment, up to sexual harassment from these men from her team and other teams that don't want her around. And she you know, she has a potty mouth herself, but also she can get a little bit violent. So that feels like, in this story, that's how we deal with, you know, the sexual harassment. So I'm like, there's a lot. You know, this book didn't really work for me. I think it was told so much in exposition. And, you know, there are interesting possibilities about, you know, aging parents who are denying their health care, and how you know, a young adult, you know, at the cusp of 30s can turn things around when, you know, things went wrong for her, and in fact she even gets a DUI and is dealing with alcoholism, and that's when she actually at the AAA meetings, or, you know, their version of it, she meets this old crush she had in, you know, middle school or high school or whatever, and they rekindle things. And there's interesting, you know, possibilities in there, but I feel like the characters just weren't fully formed enough for me to, you know, invest in them that much. And so I kind of found the reading experience to be a slog, frankly, and I'm kind of hoping this is the worst I'll have to deal with this month. We shall see. And the final book I'll talk about here is Wild Thing by Sue Prideaux, and I'll get to the subtitle here, which is The Life of Paul Gauguin. So this is a biography of Paul Gauguin, who was a French painter and artist, who I'm struggling apparently with the pronunciation, but he lived during the time of the Impressionists and had a bit of a wild life with his upbringing, and he ultimately ends up in Tahiti, living among Polynesians and kind of standing against the French colonialism even. But that's all I will say here in this video, because this is the book I am reading for the BookTube Prize. So the BookTube Prize was started by Robert Sheard in 2019 as a way for the Literary Bookternet to judge the best in literary fiction and nonfiction published in English in the US the year before. So for the 2026 prize, we are judging 2025 releases. We start with long lists of 48 books per division, and then through 4 rounds we whittle it down to winners and runners-up. So here we are now nearing the end of round 1, the octafinals, the first of all the long list rounds. And so I'm an official judge for nonfiction, and I'm reading ballot G. And anyway, I have to pitch this book against 5 others, and then I decide which 3 I want to move on to the next round, the quarterfinals. But until then, I'm not allowed to give any thoughts, so I'm zipping my lips beyond this as an official judge, you know, keeping my peace. But if you want to learn more about my preliminary thoughts about my ballot before I started reading, I made a video I'll link to down below, and I'll also link to the BookTube Prize website if you'd like more information on that. And that about covers it for me now. I don't think I've been talking for very long, but we're in a time of the day where the sun is very active, so now the, you know, shadow and light have already moved significantly on my face. So anyway, you can expect me back here on this channel in the next few days, where I'm going to do a Would You Read It challenge meme. And this is actually where I take ballots of the BookTube Prize from yesteryear, focusing on fiction, and then I am able to read and talk about the beginnings of those books. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. And I hope you are all enjoying your reading, or maybe giving up on your reading. You know, I was thinking about it with this book that I Welcome Home Caroline KLINE, which I didn't like very much. You know, there's always the option of DNFing, and now that Goodreads has even officially added a DNF shelf, it's even more enticing. But frankly, I think I'm maybe a little too stubborn for that. Maybe I have that in common with the main character of the story, at least. So I didn't do that, but I am definitely glad to be moving on. So we'll see what new reading brings. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone. And I'll see you next time.